Hey, sixth grade. So after we are done weighing our block of wood, we should know how much it weighs, and we are going to go to the next step, which is filing and sanding. So we're going to talk about where we can get rid of some of the weight off of the car. We're going to talk about our next steps of what to do and what all of these tools are. So the first thing I want to talk about is the weight of my car. In the last video, I weighed this car and it weighed 20 grams, which is great if, let's say, I wanted to be in the 30 gram weight class. Some kids might worry and be like, oh man, my car is 20 grams and I went lower than the 30 grams. No, that's not necessarily the truth, because we still have to put wheels, axles, and bearings on here to make this a car. Right now it's just a block of wood, and wheels, axles, and bearings weigh 20 grams of weight, 20 grams. So actually they weigh 22 grams. So basically with wheels, axles, and bearings on my car, I am at 42 grams of weight. So my car currently weighs 42 grams of weight with wheels, axles, and bearings on it. And I need to get it down to the 30 gram weight class. Now, obviously I want to be on the lower side of the weight class. So I'm going to shoot for 30, 31, 32 grams. So I got to basically get rid of 10 grams off my car. And now the question is, like, where can I get rid of it? And it's really easy to figure it out. So I can see where some of my imperfections are, and I've got like a little bump here. Maybe I can get rid of that. It's not very streamlined, so I can probably get rid of that. That maybe get a gram or two off, believe it or not. I can't really take any area off my car where the axles are, so I'm not allowed to really do that where my actual thumb is and my finger is. So I can't make it thinner, and I can't really sand here, but I can get rid of some of the area above it. So I can thin that out if I want to. That's pretty simple. Around the CO2 cartridge hole is really the best place. We can see all the wood that's around that. There's a lot of wood there. And so the best thing I can do is try to get rid of a lot of this area on top. I'm pretty close here, but on top I could probably get rid of some of that, and that could get rid of a good amount of weight. And so this is the video where I'm going to show you guys how to do something like that, and we need some of these tools here on the table to make that happen. So the first tool I want to talk about is this tool right here. This is a circle stencil, and the circle that we're going to be using today is the 1 1/8 inch circle, which is the last one on the second row of the biggest circles, the last one. That 1 1/8 inch circle is going to be really important, and I'll show you guys why that is in a couple minutes. We need sandpaper. We need two types of sandpaper. We need 150 grit, which could be blue or pink. That's the types that I got. They could be all different colors. The ones I have are blue and pink. It's 150 grit. This is considered a finishing sandpaper. We'll talk about that. And an 80 grit sandpaper. We'll need some of that. Then we need files. This is called a rasp file, and a file brush, because there's going to be a lot of sawdust that gets in here, and the brush is there to clean it up. So let's go to the first thing, which was our circle stencil. I'm going to reposition my camera because we're going to be using the vice clamp today. So that should give us a good look into what we're doing. So now using the vice clamp is really easy. You just have to loosen it up, and then you pull it open. Then you'll put your car into the vice clamp, and you'll close the car. And I try to cover my axle holes on the side. If you can't cover your axle holes, and let's say your car is up here, that's okay too. You can actually get it up there if you'd like to. But the truth is that you want to cover those axle holes with some tape, because when you're using the rasp file, you might accidentally file down over your axles, and that could put you out of spec. But if you put tape over those axle holes, it makes it a lot easier in case you accidentally go and file that. It keeps the car in spec. So I'm going to just put like 2 small pieces of tape, and I'll do that by putting it right over my axle holes. This is pretty simple, right there. Okay, covering my axle hole now, and I'm going to do one on the other side. And again, if I start filing down and I accidentally hit the tape will peel up and remind me, hey, there's axle holes there. Please don't keep filing, and then I go out of spec. So I will put my car into the vice clamp, which just push it closed, and then you turn the handle until it's snug. You don't want to tighten it too much. Remember, it is balsa wood, and it will snap. So we're just going to tighten it so it's snug. While I'm filing, I might even need to hold this down a little bit. Now, I will grab my circle stencil and a pencil, And I'll use the 1 1/8 inch hole. And that's, like I said, it's this one. And it actually says the measurement on it, like right here, will tell you what the size is. So we're looking at 1 1/8 inches. And I'm going to lay it over my axle hole, my CO2 cartridge hole, I'm sorry. So now I've got my CO2 cartridge hole, and I'm just centering it out, like eyeball it, it's fine. And I will draw my circle here. What this is going to do is it's going to give me a 1/4 of an inch space around my CO2 cartridge hole. Our actual specification here is that we're not allowed to get within 1/8 of an inch of that CO2 cartridge hole. So when I did this, I put it at 1/4 of an inch. I'm giving more room so that I can file it down to that location, and then I can still have room to sand it. And that's going to be important. So now I can take my file, and there are two sides of the file. There is a rounded side, and there is a flat side. We're going to be using the flat side today. Rounded side is for inside of curves. So if, let's say I was filing an inside of a hole, I'd be filing it with the rounded side. But I'm not doing that. I'm doing the outside of the car, and so I need the flat side to do that. And it's really great. It will take off a lot of weight, and it'll do it very quickly. So just make sure that you do not go past that line. That's on your car. And I'll try to get close, but I won't actually get to the line. But I'll do the best that I can to get as close as I can to it. Now remember, if you're filing underneath your car, make sure that you're not going to file underneath the car to the point where you're going to file into those axle holes, because we don't want to go out of spec there. And just take your time. Remember, it is a vice clamp, and it will go over this really, really quickly. Okay, once I have that done, I can take my car out of here, and you can see what I've done to that car. And you can see the area that I couldn't get to that was still in the file. It's pretty easy to do this one. So obviously I'm going to want you to sweep off into a dustpan and always clean up your messes. But now that I have that little area that's on there, I'm going to want to get rid of that. So I'm just going to put the front of my car in there, leaving all of this on top. And what I'll do is I'll hold the back, and I'll just go one way with my RAS file to basically blend everything together and get rid of those bumps on the top. I don't want those kind of bumps, because what will happen is it'll actually have a little wind resistance. It'll change the wind, and it could cause drag, and I don't want anything on my car to slow me down. So I'm just going to get rid of all that. Really simple. Now you'll notice that where I'm filing is around where those axle holes are. And the good news is I can do that, and I'll tell you why. Because I didn't even touch where my axle holes are. And you can file and sand whatever's above it. You just have to remember that there is a CO2 cartridge hole, and that does go in 2 inches deep. So if you file too much, you can actually sand into the front of the hole that's all the way in there right here. So you got to be careful of that too. But I didn't go really any further than I should have here. I can even sand that down, but you can see there's like a huge difference between what my car looked like before and what it looked like after. And once I'm done filing, I can take my tape off, and then I can go to the next step. But my car is almost ready, and I've just taken off this area. So there's so much more I could file on here, and I will, but not for this video demonstration. Just right now for the video demonstration, I'm just going to do the little things to give you an idea, and then you can go from there. But notice how much sawdust is in my file now. And so I just take my file brush, and we quickly try to brush it out. And I'll give this some more attention later, but there's still some pieces in there. It just takes a couple seconds and you're good. Now I'm done with my file, and I can go on to sandpaper. Now when we are sanding, we want to start with 150 grit. I'm just going to adjust the camera, get the other pieces that I don't need any longer out of the way. So now it's just basically me, my car, and some sandpaper. And so what I plan on doing is just sanding this down. Now when we sand, we have to sand in a direction called with the grain. So you guys see these lines that are in the wood. Let me see if I can get closer. I don't know if the blurry is going to end up taking care of that, but you can see it actually on the table. This whenever there's wood, there's like lines in the wood. Those lines are called wood grains. And whenever we're sanding, we want to sand in the direction that the grains are going. If you go against the grains, it'll make it very scratchy. It won't look very nice. And with these cars, it'll actually give you a lot of these little parts of the wood that come up and create like furries. And those furries will slow you down because it'll catch wind. So we have to sand with the grains. So that's the direction of the grains. And that means we're going to go this way with it. Now, when I use a piece of sandpaper, I can hold it like this if I want to, but I could make it a little bit easier. I can fold it up, whatever is easier for me. And then I can sand. Now, I'm only going to sand half the car down so you can see the differences. And with 80 grit, and I would go over this and take more attention to detail, you know, if I wasn't doing the video. So I'm just trying to go as fast as I possibly can so the video is not too long for you. And hopefully you're pausing this video as we move forward so you can do some and then come back to the video. So when I'm done sanding, I've actually smoothed that out a whole bit, a whole bunch, I mean. And then you'll see that there's like areas where I didn't, and it's still sort of like filed and like there's a lot of grooves and very chunky, whereas this side is a bit smoother. And that's with 80 grit. So we always start with 80 grit. We start with the roughest and then we end with the smoothest. As I said earlier, 150 grit is a finishing sandpaper. And when we want our cars to be perfectly smooth, we should sand the entire car off with 150 grit and give it its due. Like, really get in there and sand with 150 grit. It's not going to take off much weight. In fact, since we're just sort of seeing what I'm doing here with the 150 grit, I'd like to take a moment here and talk about how much weight you really need to get off your car. If you're like more than 3 grams, you really need to file. Sanding will get maybe 3 grams at most. So don't waste your time just sanding. Sometimes you do have to get that file out and you have to file things down. But when you get the weight off, you keep measuring and weighing your car to see how close you are to the ideal weight class you want to be in. And when you're done, then you can get into your sanding. And that's really great because it's going to make it perfectly smooth and it won't take off too much weight. It'll kind of keep you within that range. And so now you can see this is actually beautiful. It's like perfectly smooth. As my high school tech teacher used to say, he was like this guy from Sicily, used to go, "Oh, that's a nice," and that's exactly what we're looking for. We're looking for something very smooth here. So there's the differences. It's very rough on this side and very smooth on this side. And when you're done, you want to smooth your entire car over, weigh it, and then you're good. So this is the demonstration on how to use file and sandpaper to sand your car down and get rid of some weight. Hopefully that helps you. And if you have any questions, you know how to reach me.